Well, let me welcome you to The Road to the White House, sponsored by Pace University. I'm David Caputo, professor of political science at Pace University in New York City. And this is turning out to be every bit as enjoyable as I thought it would be, and every bit as complicated as I anticipated it might be when the campaign started really almost a year and a half, 2 years ago. Today I want to introduce you to two other websites. If you recall, last time in previous lecture I had talked about other websites. Today I want to talk about the Princeton Election Consortium website, and also I want to talk about Larry Sabato's Crystal Ball. Both of these are free. You can get onto them by simply logging in terms of the Princeton one, just Princeton Election Consortium, and that'll bring up the page behind me. This is their home page. The important thing about the Princeton site is that it's probably one of the more nerdy type of sites in the sense that they go into great length in explaining various things, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But the bottom line is up here at the top. They update this. This is updated at 8:04 this morning. It's about 3 hours later now. And this is a snapshot of 126 polls. They show that in terms of the Electoral College, that it would be 324 to 214. And they show the meta margin in terms of what Clinton will end up in terms of the popular vote at 3.5%. And their probability, random drift and Bayesian, you'll have to read into the website to understand it. But they're still showing it at 84% and 90%, very high probability. That is much higher than other sites have said. And part of it is due to their methodology. Now, what is so interesting, and if you also notice that they're saying that the Senate is a 50-50, and the Democrats have a 72% probability of getting to that 50-50, which means then that if Clinton is elected, they would control the Senate because the vice president breaks ties in the Senate, and they would be tied at 50-50. I think all of these are subject to a lot of interpretation. But let me explain what makes Princeton so interesting. If you go down a little bit further down here, okay, they have this particular paragraph talks about, you can actually click on their methods, and they explain to you how they weight the polls, how they do their statistical analysis and so forth. And then in addition to that, you can also look at reader interaction with their methods. So if you want to be critical of the method, you can do so. If you're a mathematical oriented person and you want to see how they weight the different polls and so forth. So for instance, let's see, takes a low noise snapshot of state polls, then adds possible drift based on recent elections in this year. Because of intense polarization, few voters are movable. I want to come back to that. The calculation says that Clinton's win probability is 90%, it goes on. And they argue that one of the problems with other forecasts are they're trying to attract individuals. And so they're trying to accentuate the closer the race. The Princeton Consortium has made an interesting argument from the beginning, and that is that this is not an atypical race. That Donald Trump's candidacy is not an atypical candidacy. That in fact, this is a typical partisan divided race. And it is similar to 2004, 2008, and 2012. Everyone else, myself included at times, tends to argue that this is a unique race. They argue, no, this is not a unique race. This is going to be decided on strictly partisan grounds. And under that scenario, in their estimation, this is why Secretary Clinton will defeat Donald Trump. Interesting analysis, partly because of their meta-analysis, but also because you get to see exactly how they're ranking things. The other thing that's important is they're using largely statewide polls, okay, rather than national polls to reach decisions in their various states. So as has happened in the other forecasts, this is narrowed. As I said, for a while they were up in the low 90s. This is now narrowed some. Interesting site, and one that I would recommend you go to. The second one is, and this is clearly the site for those of you who are statistical gurus and are interested in mathematical models and so forth, because you can get into a lot of very interesting variables there. Now, the other interesting one is Larry Sabato's crystal ball. This is very easy to get to. All you have to do is type in Larry Sabato, S-A-B-A-T-O, crystal ball. It's at the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia. Sabato is a very well-respected political scientist who regularly is on various talk shows with his analysis and so forth. And what he's done, and here you can see how easy it is to sign up. It's free. It's free. I'll talk about a couple sites in the future that are not free. This one is free. You sign up. You get his weekly updates. It's very interesting. So just to show you, for instance, let me show you the Senate results. This is what he's arguing going to happen to the Senate in 2016. And he has it 50-49 Democratic. This is as of September 7th, with one toss-up state, and the toss-up state is Nevada. So he has the Democrats. This is the lighter blue means that they lean Democratic. The darker blue is means that they're likely Democratic, and the safe Democratic is all blue. Okay, so if you're Chuck Schumer in New York State, you're happy to see that he has your race as a solid blue. If you're Michael Bennet in the state of Colorado, you're happy to see that he has your race solid blue. California, same thing with Harris. You can see the various ones. The fact that in his estimation, as of a week ago, there's only one toss-up is very interesting, because most people would argue that the New Hampshire race is really a toss-up, that the Wisconsin race will get closer, that the Indiana race may be a toss-up, Pennsylvania may be a toss-up. One of the interesting things here is he has Florida as leaning Republican. Most people would put Florida likely to safe Republican now, because Rubio has managed to find new life as a Senate candidate despite the things that he had said during the campaign. So this gives you the type of thing that Sabato gives you. Again, you can interpret it with a grain of salt, but he does the same thing for president, does the same thing for governor, and then he also has usually a weekly story or two where he has people who have different views on the election process who come in and will comment. So this is very useful reading for you. It gets into some very specific information, and it's kind of a chance to almost be sitting in a seminar room with a person who's very knowledgeable about elections and campaigns, and who's able to raise a series of very interesting questions. Again, totally nonpartisan. Does not support a particular candidate or not, as all the websites that I'm suggesting you look at are nonpartisan in basis. So this would be the second one. I'll talk next week, and I'll try to have another one or two for you, and then at that point, turn you loose to watch the development of this campaign over the last 6 to 7 weeks. So thank you very much.